You do not become wealthy by simply working harder. You become wealthy by creating something that continues working long after you have finished. Most people spend their entire lives trapped in the endless cycle of exchanging hours for paychecks. They wake up, go to work, earn money, come home, and then repeat the exact same routine the next day. It feels normal, it feels responsible, yet somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice keeps asking, can this really be all that life has to offer? True wealth, the kind that brings peace of mind, freedom of choice, and lasting security, does not come from endless labor. It comes from building assets. Assets are like silent machines that continue generating value long after the original work has been completed. They are systems you build once but benefit from for years, sometimes even for generations. Wealthy people understand this principle deeply. They do not spend their lives chasing money. Instead, they dedicate themselves to building engines that keep producing money. These engines continue running while they sleep, while they spend time with family, while they travel, and while they simply enjoy life. Today, you're about to understand those same timeless principles, not empty promises, not unrealistic shortcuts, but proven ideas that have helped people build assets capable of outlasting their creators. Assets that slowly buy back your time, assets that reduce your dependence on constant work, assets that make financial freedom a possibility instead of just a dream. Throughout this audiobook, you will discover why the wealthiest individuals think differently about time, money, and opportunity. You will learn why systems are more powerful than effort alone, how small beginnings can grow into unstoppable streams of income, and how your knowledge, your skills, your creativity, and even your daily habits can eventually become lifelong sources of value. By the time you reach the end, you will not only understand wealth, you will begin to see it differently, feel it differently, and know exactly how to build it one asset at a time. Now settle in comfortably, relax your shoulders, let your mind become open. Prepare yourself to enter a way of thinking that transforms ordinary workers into long-term owners and builders. This is the mindset behind creating assets that continue paying you for years, even decades. There comes a moment in nearly every person's life when something quietly changes. It is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is simply a realization. Sometimes it is a growing discomfort. Sometimes it is nothing more than a gentle whisper inside your own mind, saying, I cannot keep living like this forever. Maybe that realization arrives late at night after another exhausting day at work. Maybe it appears during a rushed lunch break when the fatigue feels heavier than usual. Or perhaps it comes on an ordinary morning when the alarm clock rings. Your body gets out of bed, but your spirit stays behind. In that moment, you begin to realize that you are not simply working. You are repeating the same day again and again while convincing yourself that repetition is the same as living. Almost everyone experiences this feeling at some point. The difference is that only a small number of people choose to listen to it. From childhood, we are taught to believe that income is something earned only through physical presence. Show up, clock in, work hard, wait for a raise, repeat the process. Society presents this as the safest path. But beneath that familiar routine lies a difficult truth. If your income disappears the moment you stop showing up, then your freedom does not truly belong to you. It is borrowed. You may be hardworking, you may be dependable, you may possess valuable skills and strong discipline. But if your financial security depends entirely on your continued presence, then you are not fully free. Your entire lifestyle can be disrupted the moment illness arrives, exhaustion takes over, or life presents challenges you never expected. Real wealth begins the moment your thinking changes. Instead of seeing yourself as the source of income, you begin seeing yourself as the designer of systems that create income. That single shift changes everything. Imagine this for a moment. Suppose you stopped working, not forever, but for just 1 month. What would happen? For most people, everything immediately begins falling apart. Rent still has to be paid. Bills continue arriving. Loans remain due. Daily expenses never stop. Life does not pause simply because your body or your mind needs rest. This is the invisible prison in which millions of people live every day. Even more surprising is that many defend this prison with familiar phrases. That is just how life works. I need stability. I cannot afford to take risks. But what if remaining exactly where you are is the greatest risk of all? People who build wealth view the world through a completely different perspective. Where others see permanent employment, they see a temporary stepping stone. Where others focus only on earning income, they focus on creating leverage. Where others accept endless effort as unavoidable, they search for opportunities to replace that effort with systems, technology, automation, or scalable assets. They understand one powerful truth. Your time is far too valuable to spend on work that a system, a tool, or a machine can eventually perform for you. You were not born simply to exchange the limited hours of your life for enough money to survive. You were born with the ability to imagine, create, improve, and build things that continue creating value long after you have stepped away. Before you can begin building assets, however, you must first confront an even deeper question. How much of your identity is tied to the idea that your worth comes only from earning through constant effort? For many people, the greatest obstacle is not financial, it is psychological. From an early age, we are taught that working harder automatically means building a better life. Yet hard work by itself has never been the true source of wealth. If effort alone created wealth, then the hardest working people on earth would also be the richest people alive. They are not, because effort without leverage eventually becomes exhaustion, and exhaustion quietly steals everything that matters. It steals your creativity, it steals your ability to think clearly, it steals your imagination, it steals your willingness to dream bigger, plan further ahead, and build with patience instead of urgency. There is a reason wealthy individuals guard their time more carefully than they guard their money. Money can always be earned again. Time never returns. The moment you truly understand this reality, your entire perspective begins to change. Work is not the final destination. Work is simply the tool that allows you to build assets capable of working on your behalf in the future. This realization marks the beginning of genuine freedom. Freedom does not necessarily mean quitting your job tomorrow. Freedom does not mean rejecting responsibility. Freedom means gradually separating your ability to survive from your need to continuously trade labor for income. Every successful entrepreneur, every long-term investor, every creator of lasting assets eventually experienced a defining moment when they made one important decision. I refuse to spend my entire life exchanging my lifetime for income. They recognize something that many people never fully understand. Income that depends entirely on your physical presence will always remain temporary. Income that depends on systems you have designed has the potential to become permanent. Think about life as two completely different paths. The first path is simple. You work for money. Every paycheck depends on your hours, your effort, your energy, and your availability. The moment you stop working, the income eventually stops as well. The second path is entirely different. Instead of spending your entire life working for money, you begin creating assets until money gradually begins working for you. Your time is the seed. Your systems are the soil that nourishes it. Your assets are the trees that continue bearing fruit year after year. You plant once, nurture wisely, and the harvest keeps returning season after season. Whether you are working, relaxing, traveling across the world, or peacefully sleeping through the night, the machine you created never stops operating. Most people remain trapped on the first path, not because they lack intelligence or talent, but because they have never been shown another way. Their limitation is not ability, it is awareness. No one teaches them that they can choose a different path. No one explains that income is not something you endlessly chase, it is something you intentionally build. The journey out of income dependency begins with one powerful question. What if my time were no longer the source of my income, but the architect behind it? That single question has the power to redirect the entire course of your life. You begin thinking further into the future. You become more patient, more strategic, and more deliberate. Suddenly, you notice opportunities that were always around you, but remained invisible. You begin recognizing skills that can be transformed into products, knowledge that can evolve into valuable assets, ideas that can become automated systems, and platforms capable of multiplying your effort without demanding more of your time. You realize that the world has changed more dramatically than most people understand. Technology has removed many of the barriers that once stood in the way. You no longer need someone's permission. You no longer need enormous amounts of capital. You no longer need status or prestige before creating something that continues producing value long after your personal effort has ended. Today, anyone willing to learn can become an asset builder. Everything begins with learning how to think like one. You separate your value from your labor. You separate your identity from your productivity. You separate your income from your physical presence. The moment this shift takes place, the clock no longer controls your life. Instead, you become the one directing how your time is spent. This is the first real step toward the freedom you have quietly sensed all along. The freedom you have imagined during silent moments, hoped for during difficult days, and believed was possible somewhere beyond ordinary living. A freedom built not upon endless effort, but upon thoughtful structure, not upon hours worked, but upon ownership created, not upon survival, but upon intelligent design. And once this shift becomes part of your thinking, your life can never be viewed the same way again. Most people move through life believing a simple equation: more effort equals more income. Work harder, stay later, push yourself further, sacrifice even more. But very few stop to recognize the obvious limitation hidden inside that equation. Effort has a ceiling. There are only 24 hours available in every single day. Your body contains only a limited amount of energy. Your mind can sustain focused attention only for so long before fatigue begins stealing both performance and creativity. Effort may be enough to build survival, but systems are what build wealth. A system is anything capable of continuing to produce results long after the original effort has already been completed. A system could be a business operating without your constant supervision. It could be a piece of content that continues reaching new people for years. It could be a rental property producing monthly income. It could be a digital product sold automatically around the clock. It could be an automated service. It could be an investment portfolio quietly compounding over decades. It could even be a collection of daily habits whose benefits multiply year after year. The specific form does not matter. What matters is continuity. A true system continues working even when you are not. This is the principle that wealthy people quietly protect, carefully expand, and eventually pass down to future generations. They understand something many never discover. Money rarely flows toward the person working the hardest. It flows toward the individual who creates the strongest and smartest structure. Picture a farmer standing beside a dry field. Every day he carries heavy buckets of water from the river to his crops. The work is exhausting. The routine never ends. Each day begins exactly where the previous one ended. Or he could invest his effort once into building a proper irrigation system, allowing water to flow continuously without carrying another bucket again. Most people spend their lives carrying buckets. The wealthy spend their time building pipelines. Many people avoid this truth because accepting it forces them outside the comfort of familiar routines. Your current life is simply a reflection of the systems you have built, or the systems you have neglected to build. If everything immediately falls apart the moment you stop working, then your life is powered entirely by effort rather than thoughtful design. And effort, no matter how admirable or disciplined, will always remain temporary. The moment you understand the extraordinary power of systems, everything begins changing. One of the greatest gifts a system provides is leverage. Effort by itself can never create enough leverage. Leverage means that one unit of work produces many times more value than the effort originally invested. It is the invisible force behind nearly every lasting fortune. When a YouTube video continues generating income years after it was uploaded, that is leverage. When a rental property produces monthly cash flow while you sleep, that is leverage. When a valuable skill is transformed into a digital product that sells automatically across the world, that is leverage. When investments quietly compound without requiring your daily involvement, that is leverage. Leverage transforms your decisions into workers. It transforms your ideas into employees. It transforms your creativity into engines that continue operating long after you have finished building them. The wealthiest individuals are not wealthier because they work longer hours. They are wealthier because they possess far greater leverage than everyone else. So why do most people continue relying entirely on effort instead of systems? It is not because they are incapable. It is because almost no one ever introduces them to another way of thinking. Schools teach effort, employers reward effort, society celebrates effort. Yet the marketplace quietly rewards systems. Employees naturally think in hours, entrepreneurs think in assets, investors think in compounding, the truly wealthy think in decades. Building systems demands patience. Effort offers immediate feedback. And because human beings naturally seek quick reassurance, most continue clinging to effort like a lifeline, even while that very habit slowly drains the future they hope to build. Eventually, everyone reaches the same defining question. If your income depends entirely upon your effort, your growth will always remain limited by your effort. But when your income begins depending upon systems, your potential expands far beyond your personal limits. Time remains the greatest equalizer in existence. Every human being receives the exact same 24 hours each day. So why do some people experience lives filled with calmness, spaciousness, and opportunity, while others constantly feel overwhelmed, rushed, and exhausted? The difference is rarely talent. The difference is systems. Systems create time. Systems multiply time. Systems protect time. Imagine waking each morning knowing that parts of your life continue functioning automatically. Income continues arriving. Content continues reaching people. Investments continue growing. Distribution continues expanding. Marketing continues attracting customers. Sales continue happening. While many people spend every day reacting to endless demands, you gradually build a life designed to respond on your behalf. That is why genuine wealth feels peaceful. It is not simply about luxury, it is about relief. Relief from constant pressure, relief from financial fear, relief from the exhausting need to keep running every single day. Systems transform life from survival into sovereignty. To build lasting wealth, you must stop thinking like a worker and begin thinking like an architect. Workers ask, how much can I earn today? Architects ask, what can I build today that will continue earning long after today has ended? Workers think in individual tasks. Architects think in interconnected systems. Workers earn once. Architects create assets that continue earning again and again. This transformation does not require extraordinary intelligence. It does not require enormous wealth. It does not require privilege. It requires awareness. Once you begin seeing the world through the lens of systems, you start noticing opportunities that were invisible before. Every successful application is a system. Every thriving franchise operates as a system. Every online course functions as a system. Every automated online store is a system. Every successful content creator has built a system. Every well-managed investment portfolio is a system. The modern world already runs on systems. The only difference is that until now, you may not have been building systems for yourself. The encouraging truth is that creating systems does not require millions of dollars. It does not require advanced degrees. It does not require permission from anyone. It requires only 3 essential ingredients: time, consistency, and the courage to begin before everything feels perfect. Your first system might be a digital product that continues selling automatically. It might be a YouTube channel that grows steadily from publishing 1 or 2 valuable videos each week. It could become a blog that attracts visitors year after year. It might be an email list that continues generating sales while you sleep. It could be an investment portfolio, quietly compounding in the background. Or it might simply be a collection of disciplined daily habits that steadily multiply your skills, your knowledge, and your future opportunities over time. These may seem like small machines in the beginning, but every great engine starts as something small. Over time, those small machines grow into powerful systems capable of producing extraordinary results. People often underestimate what they can create through 1 year of consistent system building, yet they dramatically overestimate what 1 day of hard work alone can accomplish. That is precisely why systems always outperform effort in the long run. There is, however, an uncomfortable truth about building systems. Systems require you to surrender control. Effort feels comfortable, Because you remain personally involved in every outcome. You are present. You are making every decision. You feel in control. Systems, on the other hand, demand that you build something capable of functioning without your constant presence. That uncertainty makes many people uncomfortable. But freedom has always required letting go. You cannot insist on controlling every detail while expecting complete freedom at the same time. Release the belief that you must personally do everything yourself. Release the belief that income has to arrive immediately. Release the belief that hard work, by itself, is enough to create lasting wealth. The moment you let go of those limiting beliefs, you create room for something greater. You stop behaving like someone who simply works. You begin thinking like someone who builds. This chapter is not encouraging you to work less. It is inviting you to work differently. Work with purpose. Work with vision. Work with patience. Work on creating things that continue producing value long after your personal effort has ended. Because once your life begins operating through systems instead of constant effort, everything starts changing. Your days become lighter, your choices become broader, your future becomes clearer, and the pressure you have carried for so many years slowly begins to disappear. This is the first law of lasting wealth. Effort creates temporary moments. Systems create lasting freedom. Time is perhaps the most mysterious currency in human existence. Every person receives it. Every person spends it. Yet only a small percentage of people ever discover how to use it as an investment rather than an expense. Most people measure time in hours. Wealthy people measure time in outcomes. Most people ask, how long will this take? Wealthy people ask, how long will this continue paying me? Most people exchange time directly for money. Today's work, today's paycheck, tomorrow's pressure. Then the cycle begins all over again. Few people ever stop to question the long-term cost of living this way, but wealthy builders understand something remarkably different. A life powered entirely by tasks can never create lasting freedom. Only a life powered by systems can. Every year spent working without building is a year that pays only once. Every year spent creating systems becomes a year capable of paying repeatedly for many years afterward. The wealthy exchange time for systems capable of generating money repeatedly. That subtle shift in thinking creates one of the greatest invisible differences between those who merely survive and those who steadily accumulate freedom. Because time is not something you simply possess. Time is something you deliberately deploy, and every decision about where your time goes carries consequences. Every single hour you spend doing work that does not compound disappears forever. You lose not only the hour itself, you lose every opportunity hidden inside that hour. The opportunity to build, the opportunity to learn, the opportunity to create, the opportunity to invest, the opportunity to expand your future. People often repeat the phrase, "But time is money." But that statement is incomplete. Money comes back. Time never does. Money lost can be earned again. Money spent can be replaced. Time quietly disappears forever, often so silently that most people never even notice it leaving. The moment you truly understand this reality, your relationship with time changes forever. You stop asking, "How much can I earn today?" And you begin asking, "What can I build today that will continue earning long after I stop working?" That single shift separates financial stagnation from financial creation. The wealthy do not simply manage time, they multiply it. Most people believe the solution is fitting more responsibilities into every day. More work, more meetings, more hustle, more pressure, more grinding. But adding more tasks never creates additional time. It simply creates additional exhaustion. Wealthy people approach time differently. They do not try to outrun the clock. They increase what the clock is capable of producing. Someone with a worker's mindset earns value only while physically present. Their 24 hours can never produce more than 24 hours of value. Someone with a builder's mindset approaches time differently. One focused hour can eventually produce hundreds or even thousands of hours of value through systems, digital products, automation, investments, intellectual property. or content that continues working indefinitely. That is how wealthy people live beyond the normal boundaries of time, while others slowly become exhausted by it. They do not age into fatigue, they age into leverage. The goal is never to manage time more efficiently. The goal is to gradually free your time. There is another invisible danger few people ever recognize, the danger of settling for good enough. Working hard is not the problem. Hard work has value. The real danger lies in spending years performing tasks that never expand beyond the moment they are completed. Tasks that disappear the instant you stop doing them. Tasks that never create infrastructure. Tasks that provide payment only once and never again. Most people become trapped inside a cycle of temporary results. That explains why some people work tirelessly for decades, yet never move forward financially. Meanwhile, others spend only a few highly focused years building valuable assets and eventually enjoy decades of independence. The difference is rarely luck. The difference is how they choose to invest their time. The wealthy understand that compounding applies to far more than money. Time itself compounds when invested wisely. Most people think compounding belongs only to investing. Its greatest power actually appears when time is invested into systems. 1 hour spent creating a digital product may continue generating income for the next 10 years. 1 hour invested in recording a valuable YouTube video may produce returns thousands of times greater than the hour required to create it. 1 hour dedicated to learning an in-demand skill can eventually become a lifelong income engine. 1 hour spent creating automation today may save hundreds or even thousands of hours throughout the future. Wealthy people rarely ask, "What will this hour pay me?" Instead, they ask, "What will this hour build?" That single question has the power to reshape an entire future. People also underestimate the true cost of postponing their dreams. They believe they are choosing safety. In reality, they are often choosing stagnation. Every day you postpone building assets, you lose far more than time. You lose the future compounding that time could have created. The wealthy understand that the greatest cost of inaction is not simply regret. It is a lifetime of unnecessary limitation. Every month you delay investing reduces the future growth available to you. Every day you postpone creating a system shortens the amount of future time that system could have saved. Every year you wait before building your personal brand, your digital business, or your intellectual assets reduces the influence those assets could eventually achieve. Time is not working against you, but neither is it waiting patiently for you. Most people greatly overestimate what can be accomplished in one day. At the same time, they underestimate what consistent effort can achieve over one focused year. The wealthy reverse that thinking completely. They master patience, they master repetition, they master consistency, and consistency quietly becomes the architect of lasting freedom. True wealth cannot be built inside constant urgency. A worker's life is filled with deadlines, tasks, pressure, demands, endless reactions. A builder's life is guided by intention, strategy, design, systems, investments, long-term vision. Intention creates prosperity. You cannot create lasting wealth while constantly reacting to short-term problems. You cannot thoughtfully design your future while spending every day extinguishing the fires of the present. That is why escaping urgency becomes the first meaningful step toward reclaiming ownership of your time. Wealthy people fiercely protect their focus. They willingly decline distractions. They consistently choose depth instead of noise. They think in decades rather than days. A wealthy mindset views today as a seed waiting to be planted. A poor mindset sees today only as another burden to survive. Everything you choose to build today, or choose not to build, gradually becomes the reality you experience tomorrow. Then comes one defining moment in every wealth builder's journey. The moment you stop merely spending time and begin consciously investing it. Invested time feels different. It feels calmer. It feels more intentional. It feels deeply meaningful. The moment you invest your time into creating lasting assets, you experience an immediate shift within yourself. You feel the quiet satisfaction of planting something alive, something capable of growing beyond your own effort. something that will continue serving you long after today's work has ended, something that may one day become strong enough to take care of you long into the future. You begin to understand why wealthy people often appear so calm. It is not simply because they have more money, it is because they have built stronger structures. They know that every hour they invest today expands the freedom they will enjoy tomorrow. Real freedom is not created by having more hours available. It is created by owning the hours you already have and directing them toward things that continue serving you long into the future. From this moment forward, your relationship with time begins to change. After this chapter, you will never look at time in quite the same way again. You will begin recognizing its true cost. You will understand its leverage. You will appreciate its ability to compound. You will respect its power to either imprison you or gradually set you free. Time is not your enemy. Time is the raw material from which wealth is created. How you choose to spend it, how wisely you invest it, how carefully you protect it. These decisions will determine the quality of the life you eventually build. And once you begin seeing time through the same lens as the wealthy, you uncover a truth powerful enough to transform everything. You can always create more money. You can never create more time. That is why your time should always be invested in building things that create more money, not things that demand more of your time forever. Before you can create assets capable of paying you for the rest of your life, you must first understand what an asset truly is, not the textbook definition, not the simplified explanation repeated without thought, but the deeper essence of an asset, the energy it carries, the purpose it fulfills, the freedom it quietly creates. Most people do not fail to build wealth because they lack effort. They fail because they never clearly understand what they are supposed to build. They confuse busyness with meaningful progress. They mistake consumption for ownership. They confuse status with lasting security. They purchase things that sparkle today, hoping those things will somehow produce wealth tomorrow. But a beautiful liability remains a liability no matter how attractive it appears. True assets rarely announce themselves. They do not demand attention. They do not seek admiration from strangers. They quietly perform their job day after day, faithfully, silently, endlessly. To truly understand wealth, you must first understand what could be called the asset equation. It is a remarkably simple principle, yet it governs nearly every movement of money. An asset places money into your life. A liability removes money from it. The definition sounds almost too simple, but simplicity often hides extraordinary depth, because while the explanation is straightforward, human behavior rarely follows it. A house can become an asset, or it can become a liability. A car can become an asset, or it can quietly drain your wealth. Even something as ordinary as a monthly subscription, a daily habit, or a routine purchase can either strengthen your financial future or slowly weaken it. An asset is never defined by how impressive it looks. It is defined entirely by the direction in which money flows after you acquire it. If money consistently flows toward you, it is functioning as an asset. If money consistently flows away from you, it is functioning as a liability. That single realization can eliminate years, even decades, of financial confusion. Why do so many people mistake liabilities for assets? There are several powerful reasons. The first is that society encourages comfort far more than it encourages freedom. People buy things that make them feel successful today, rather than things that make them financially independent tomorrow. The second reason is that liabilities are highly visible, while assets usually remain quiet. A luxury car immediately attracts attention. A rental property rarely does. An expensive smartphone impresses strangers. A dividend-paying investment portfolio quietly grows without applause. Wealthy people consistently choose assets that whisper over liabilities that scream. The third reason is that many financial decisions are made emotionally rather than mathematically. People purchase upgrades because they seek validation. They chase trends because they want identity. They buy convenience because they want temporary escape. But real assets are built through clarity rather than impulse. They are created through long-term thinking rather than short-term pleasure. The purpose of this chapter is to help you begin seeing the world the same way wealth builders do, not through price tags, but through the direction of value. Nearly every asset capable of paying you for years belongs to one of three essential categories. Once you understand these categories, wealth becomes far more predictable, repeatable, and scalable. The first category consists of assets that generate consistent cash flow. These are assets that regularly send money back to you, monthly, quarterly, or annually. Examples include rental properties, dividend-paying investments, digital products, online courses, affiliate websites, automated e-commerce stores, advertising-supported content, and intellectual property that continues generating royalties. Cash flow is the heartbeat of financial freedom. It is income that continues arriving whether you are working, resting, traveling, or peacefully sleeping. People who depend entirely on salaries often live with constant uncertainty about tomorrow. People who rely on cash-flowing assets move through life with greater confidence regardless of changing seasons. The second category includes assets that appreciate in value over time. These are assets whose worth gradually increases the longer they are held. Examples include real estate, broad index funds, premium internet domains, carefully selected collectibles, intellectual property that gains recognition, and well-positioned digital brands. Appreciation is one of the quietest forces in wealth creation. Its progress is rarely dramatic from one day to the next, but over years, over decades, and sometimes across generations, it transforms ordinary ownership into extraordinary wealth. Appreciation allows time to become your greatest partner instead of your greatest limitation. The third category includes assets designed primarily to protect and preserve your wealth. These assets may not always grow rapidly. Their greatest purpose is stability. Examples include gold, government bonds, emergency cash reserves, insurance, diversified investment funds, legal business structures, and trusts. Protection is one of the most overlooked dimensions of wealth. Many people mistake protection for a lack of ambition, but no great empire survives without walls, shields, and strong foundations. Wealth that is never protected eventually disappears. When these three categories work together, they create a simple but powerful equation. Cash flow plus appreciation plus protection equals wealth capable of lasting for generations. This is the architecture behind every enduring financial empire. Each element serves a different purpose. Cash flow creates freedom. Appreciation creates growth. Protection preserves everything you have already built. When all three begin supporting one another, your financial foundation becomes remarkably resilient. Yet many people misunderstand one important point. You do not need to master all three categories immediately. You simply need to begin with the first. Cash-flowing assets become the engine that eventually finances appreciation and protection. So why do so many people struggle to create real assets? The problem is rarely a shortage of resources. The real obstacle is identity. Most people see themselves as consumers instead of creators, workers instead of owners, spenders instead of investors. But the instant your identity changes, your behavior naturally follows. Wealthy people look at every dollar as a decision, every skill as hidden potential, every idea as unfinished raw material. They continually ask questions that many people never even consider. What can I transform this into? How can I make this work for me instead of requiring me to work for it? How can I multiply this instead of simply spending it? They understand something fundamental. Money was never meant to remain idle. Money was designed to be deployed. At the center of lasting wealth lies one timeless principle: own more than you earn. Ownership is what continues paying you long after effort ends. Ownership is what gradually frees you from the clock. Ownership is what survives long after your labor is finished. And ownership exists in many different forms. Owning a system, owning a business process, owning a platform, owning a product, owning a valuable skill that has been transformed into an asset, owning intellectual property, owning investments, owning attention, owning distribution channels, owning brands that continue producing value. Once you truly understand this principle, your life begins revolving around ownership instead of income. You stop asking, how can I earn more money? Instead, you begin asking, what can I build today that will continue paying me tomorrow and the day after that, and for years to come? That single question creates the dividing line between financial dependence and financial freedom. From this chapter onward, every purchase you consider deserves a different set of questions. Ask yourself, does this strengthen me or does it slowly drain me? Will I own this, or will this eventually own me? Will this give me more time or quietly take more of it away? Will this still matter 10 years from now? Questions like these become your financial compass. They quietly guide every decision. They protect your future from temporary emotions. And over time, they lead you toward a life built not upon endless spending, but upon lasting ownership. These questions quietly guide you away from temporary excitement and gently lead you toward lasting prosperity. This is the way wealthy people think. This is the way wealthy people make decisions. This is the way wealthy people continue building and preserving their wealth. Because wealth has never been the result of luck alone. Wealth is a philosophy, a way of seeing the world, making decisions and directing resources. Assets are simply that philosophy made visible. They are the physical expression of disciplined thinking. Now you are ready to take the next step. Understanding what an asset is does not mark the end of your journey. It marks the true beginning. Now that you understand what has the potential to pay you forever, the next lesson reveals how to begin modestly, think intelligently, and steadily build assets regardless of your current income. Because wealth is not reserved for those who are already rich. It is built by those who act with intention, and your intention begins today. Most people believe wealth begins with abundance, abundant income, abundant opportunities, abundant resources. But the truth is far more encouraging and far more empowering. Wealth begins with a decision, not a dollar. Every individual who eventually creates financial freedom starts from a point where they have less than they wish they had. The difference is that they choose to begin anyway. Wealth does not belong to the privileged, it belongs to the persistent. And persistence is nothing more than small actions repeated consistently, even when those actions seem too ordinary to matter. Yet those quiet actions, repeated faithfully over months and years, eventually become the architecture of a financial life that feels spacious, effortless, and deeply secure. This chapter is about the true foundation of lasting wealth. It explains how ordinary people earning ordinary incomes quietly create extraordinary futures, not through reckless risks, not through lucky breaks, but through thoughtful design, disciplined execution, and the courage to begin exactly where they stand today. You do not need more money, you need a better strategy. Many people tell themselves they will invest once they earn more. They promise they will start a business after building extra savings. They imagine they will begin creating assets when life finally becomes easier. But very few people are truly held back by a lack of money. Most are held back by waiting for perfect conditions, and perfect conditions almost never arrive. People who eventually build wealth understand a completely different principle. You do not wait until you feel ready. You become ready by taking the first step. If your income is small, then every decision carries even greater importance. If your resources are limited, your discipline becomes one of your greatest assets. If your time feels scarce, your consistency becomes your greatest advantage. Beginning small is never a weakness. It is the blueprint. Your income is not a prison, it is a seed. A single seed appears insignificant, yet hidden inside that tiny form is the potential for an entire forest. Exactly the same principle applies to your first $10 saved, your first $20 invested, your first digital product created, your first online post that attracts attention. Each of these beginnings appears small, yet each carries extraordinary potential waiting to unfold. The wealthy rarely focus on how much they currently possess. Instead, they focus on how they can multiply what they already have. Money does not respond primarily to quantity, it responds to direction. Every dollar either disappears forever or returns carrying reinforcements. The average person spends money seeking comfort. The wealthy invest money seeking expansion. There are 3 natural stages of wealth creation, and these stages apply to every person regardless of income level. The first stage is building with time instead of money. When financial capital is limited, creativity becomes your greatest currency. You begin by creating valuable content, writing practical guides, offering freelance services, starting a blog, growing an online audience, developing digital products. These are assets created primarily from time rather than money. They require little financial investment to begin, yet they possess almost unlimited potential when nurtured with consistency. Your time becomes your equity, your creativity becomes your investment, your persistence becomes your compounding force. The second stage begins once you develop a modest income. This is the stage where you begin automating your future wealth. You consistently contribute to broad index funds, purchase fractional ownership in real estate, acquire dividend-paying investments, build a dependable emergency reserve, reinvest profits from your digital work into better tools, stronger systems, and greater opportunities. Even modest contributions, $20, $30, or $50 each week, become remarkably powerful when they continue without interruption. Wealth is rarely built through size. It is built through rhythm. Consistency will always outperform intensity. The third stage begins when your income expands. This is where you move beyond simple accumulation and begin accelerating growth. Perhaps you purchase your first rental property, expand your online business, create premium digital products, strengthen your personal brand, delegate repetitive tasks, automate increasingly larger portions of your systems. This is the stage where your small beginnings reveal the strength that was hidden inside them all along. Like a snowball rolling downhill, growth becomes increasingly difficult to stop. Many people underestimate compounding because its progress appears invisible in the beginning. There are no fireworks, no applause, no instant rewards. But compounding was never designed to impress you today. It was designed to liberate you tomorrow, saving $25 every week, publishing valuable content every few days, investing a small percentage of every paycheck. These actions may not appear life-changing in the moment, yet the most powerful forces in the world almost always begin quietly. Most people never begin because small beginnings seem insignificant. They forget that a digital empire can begin with a single post. A real estate journey can begin with one disciplined savings habit. A successful business can begin with one valuable skill. A comfortable retirement can begin with $20 invested consistently. You do not need to become wealthy before building assets, but you must become willing to begin before you feel wealthy. The average person rarely fails because of difficult circumstances. More often, they fail because of impatience. They desire the rewards found in Chapter 20 while refusing to complete Chapter 1. But wealth never rewards impatience. Wealth rewards consistency. Wealth rewards the individual who continues long after excitement fades away. To create lasting wealth, you must learn to fully use whatever you already possess. Begin where you are. Build with what you have. Allow growth to emerge from consistent action. Your phone can become your creative studio. Your laptop can become your production company. Your skill can become a valuable service. Your voice can become a trusted brand. Your knowledge can become a digital product. Your discipline can eventually become generational wealth. Do not chase perfection. Pursue progress instead. Perfection often suffocates action. Imperfect action, repeated consistently, compounds into extraordinary results. Beginning small creates space to learn, to adjust, to experiment, to improve. Everything extraordinary begins in an ordinary form, and there is one truth very few people ever mention. Your first asset is not the product you create. It is not the investment you purchase. It is not even the system you build. Your very first asset is the person you become throughout the process. Because the moment you begin building, even on the smallest possible scale, you begin transforming your identity. You become someone who invests rather than merely spends. Someone who creates instead of only consumes. Someone who owns instead of merely rents. Someone who thinks decades ahead rather than days ahead. Someone who plants patiently. Someone who waits wisely. Someone who grows quietly, steadily, and intentionally. That transformation is the true foundation upon which wealth is built. Money simply follows. From this moment forward, you are no longer waiting. You are beginning, and beginning may be the most powerful financial decision any human being can ever make. Small does not mean insignificant. Small is strategic. Small is sustainable. Small is the doorway leading toward wealth that can last forever. You do not need greater income before building assets. You need direction, you need structure, you need rhythm, and above all, you need the courage to begin today with exactly what you already possess. Wealth is not created only by those who are already rich. It is created by those who remain consistently committed. From this point onward, you are becoming one of those people. Never before in human history have ordinary individuals possessed so much opportunity within such easy reach. A laptop resting on a modest desk, a smartphone lying beside your bed, a quiet room, a simple idea. These are no longer ordinary objects. They have become the modern tools of wealth creation. They are today's factories of freedom. You no longer need towering office buildings, luxury headquarters, or enormous amounts of capital to build something extraordinary. In today's world, digital assets have become one of the greatest equalizers ever created. They do not care where you were born. They do not care what degree you earned. They do not care whether you began life with privilege or with nothing at all. The digital economy cares about only one thing: the value you create. And in this era, meaningful value can be created from almost anywhere. Even from the quiet corner of your bedroom, digital assets are the invisible machines powering modern wealth. They are videos that continue reaching people while you sleep, guides that continue selling without your presence, content that keeps working long after your laptop has been closed, systems that quietly operate online day after day, gradually expanding your income in the background without demanding your constant attention. They are living proof that your time no longer has to remain the direct source of your income, because your ideas themselves can become that source. The very first step toward building digital assets is not technical at all. It is emotional. Before you learn software, platforms, or strategies, you must first believe that what you know, what you have experienced, what you are capable of teaching, what you can create, and what you are able to express genuinely holds value. Most people never take that first step because they underestimate their own uniqueness. They assume their knowledge is too common, their experiences feel too ordinary, their stories seem too unremarkable. But nothing about your life is truly ordinary when viewed from the right perspective. What feels obvious to you may be completely unfamiliar to someone else. What feels simple to you may become the exact solution another person has been searching for. Digital wealth begins the moment you recognize that valuable resources already exist within you. Your task is simply to package them. The moment you embrace this truth, everything about the way you use the internet begins to change. Your voice becomes a resource, your thoughts become raw material, your creativity becomes equity. Suddenly, you are no longer just consuming the digital world, you are actively building within it. The next step is deciding which form your digital assets will take. There are many possible paths, yet every one of them leads toward the same destination: scalability. A single YouTube video can be watched millions of times without requiring another hour of your effort. An ebook can continue selling across the world while you enjoy a quiet walk. A digital course can educate thousands of students without requiring you to repeat the same lesson over and over. A blog can continue attracting readers for years after it has been published. Even a simple template can quietly generate daily income with almost no ongoing maintenance. Digital assets possess one extraordinary characteristic: you build them once, yet they continue working long afterward. That is what makes them so powerful. In the physical world, your body eventually becomes your limit. In the digital world, those limitations begin to disappear. Your reach becomes global. Your audience becomes unlimited. Your potential becomes uncapped. And the cost of beginning has never been lower than it is today. But before digital assets begin rewarding you, you must accept something that wealthy creators understand deeply. The earliest stages of creation almost always feel slow. You will publish videos that receive only a handful of views. You will write articles that seem invisible. You will launch products that sell only a few copies. You will quietly create in the unseen corners of the internet long before anyone knows your name. That is not failure. That is simply the process. Every digital empire begins with a season of obscurity. Those who remain consistent during that season eventually build success that appears overnight to everyone else. Consistency gradually becomes your most valuable currency. Every video, every article, every small product, every lesson, every insight becomes another brick placed into the foundation of your digital future. Some bricks create only modest results, others become unexpectedly powerful, yet every single one matters. And when enough bricks are placed together, they eventually become a structure strong enough to support sustainable income and eventually lasting wealth. The third stage is automation. Digital assets become truly transformative when they continue operating without your direct involvement. Sales pages that convert automatically, scheduling systems that publish content while you sleep, email sequences that build trust on your behalf, payment platforms that receive income instantly. Once automation supports your digital assets, your time becomes available for higher-level work. You become free to create, to innovate, to improve, to expand. You no longer exchange hours directly for results. Instead, you build structure, and structure quietly produces results on your behalf. The first time automation begins working, it almost feels magical. You check your phone and discover a payment notification. You open your laptop and notice new subscribers joining while you were away. You wake up to a heartfelt message from someone living on the other side of the world, thanking you for something you created months ago. In moments like these, you realize that digital assets accomplish far more than generating income. They create impact, they create freedom, they create time, the rarest currency of all. The fourth stage is scale. Once your digital asset successfully serves 10 people, your next objective is helping it serve 100, then 1,000, then far beyond. The digital world rewards amplification. One thoughtful post can travel across continents. One meaningful idea can inspire an entire movement. One valuable digital product can reach more people in a single day than many traditional businesses reach in an entire year. That is why digital wealth compounds so rapidly. Technology multiplies everything you create. It carries your work farther, it spreads it faster, it expands it beyond what traditional business models could ever accomplish. Yet digital wealth carries one additional lesson. You must diversify. The internet changes constantly. Platforms rise, platforms disappear. Algorithms evolve, trends come and go. If you want your digital wealth to survive those changes, you must build an ecosystem rather than relying upon a single platform. A YouTube channel that naturally introduces people to your products. Products that encourage people to join your email list. An email list that develops lasting relationships. A trusted personal brand that remains valuable regardless of which platform becomes popular next. Diversification protects everything you build. It transforms fragile success into lasting stability. It makes your digital empire remarkably resilient. At the heart of every successful digital business lies one powerful force: your personal brand. People rarely buy content alone. They buy connection. They buy trust. They buy from people who feel authentic, consistent, human, reliable, meaningful. Your voice becomes your greatest asset. Your values become your guiding compass. Your presence becomes your competitive advantage. When you build digital assets, you are creating far more than income. You are creating a legacy. You are transforming your mind into a marketplace. You are turning your experiences into an economy. You are transforming an ordinary bedroom into the headquarters of something extraordinary. Then one day, when your systems operate smoothly and your digital assets continue working quietly in the background, you will look around that same small room and realize something profound. Everything you ever needed was already there. The tools, the ideas, the potential, the opportunity, the possibility. You never needed an expensive office. You never needed permission. You never needed wealth before beginning. All you truly needed was belief, consistency, and the courage to create something capable of living beyond your own effort. Digital assets represent one of the newest frontiers of freedom, and from this moment forward, you are no longer merely consuming the digital world. You are becoming one of its builders. Every human being carries within them a hidden form of wealth, a quiet reservoir of value that often remains unnoticed for years. That wealth is found in their skills, not the certificates hanging proudly on a wall, not the impressive titles printed on a resume, but the lived experiences, the instincts, the strengths, the perspectives, the insights, and the abilities slowly shaped through years of work, curiosity, mistakes, persistence, and personal growth. These skills, the ones you have accumulated without fully realizing their importance, may become some of the most valuable assets you will ever own. Yet most people never unlock their true potential. They use those skills only to earn salaries. They never transform them into systems. They exchange their abilities for temporary income without realizing those very same abilities could become assets capable of paying them for decades. Wealth does not begin with money. It begins by recognizing the value that already exists inside you. Your skills are among the most underestimated forms of currency in the world. Perhaps you communicate with remarkable clarity. Perhaps you solve problems quickly. Perhaps you explain difficult ideas in ways that anyone can understand. Perhaps you teach with patience, organize beautifully, write naturally, analyze deeply, motivate others, or instinctively recognize patterns and systems that many people overlook. Maybe you naturally simplify complex concepts. Maybe you know how to keep conversations engaging, how to plan effectively, how to lead confidently, how to negotiate thoughtfully, or how to observe details that others completely miss. None of these abilities are accidental. None of them are ordinary. Every one of them is raw material waiting to become wealth. The moment you stop viewing your skills merely as tools for earning a paycheck and begin viewing them as tools for creating assets, everything changes. Your skills stop working only for your employer. They begin working for you. The first transformation always happens inside your mindset. Instead of asking, "What job can I get with this skill?" you begin asking, "What lasting asset can I build using this skill?" That single shift has transformed countless lives. It turns employees into creators, workers into builders, people with valuable skills into owners of valuable assets. Once that transformation takes place, the world begins revealing opportunities you never noticed before. A skill you quietly mastered years ago can become a digital course that educates thousands of people. A technique you developed through years of experience can become a practical guide, a workshop, or an entire system that others willingly pay to learn. A talent you hardly noticed because it felt natural to you can eventually become the foundation of a respected brand, a thriving business, or an expanding content library that continues generating income long after the original work has been completed. The abilities that feel effortless to you are often the very abilities others struggle to develop, and people are always willing to invest in clarity, direction, solutions, and the wisdom that helps them move forward faster. The modern world rewards those who learn to package their skills, not merely those who perform them. That is one of the greatest reasons the digital age has produced more self-made millionaires than any period before it. Not because people suddenly became more intelligent, not because they were born with greater privilege, but because technology removed the walls that once stood between creators and the people who needed what they created. You no longer need anyone's permission to share what you know. You no longer need a company to validate your expertise. You no longer need an expensive office, a physical location, or enormous capital to transform your skills into valuable assets. All you truly need is the willingness to begin. The journey of turning your skills into assets always starts with reflection. You must quietly ask yourself an honest question. What am I naturally good at, even if no one has ever praised me for it? What do people consistently seek my help for? What feels effortless to me but difficult for others? What kinds of challenges energize me instead of draining me? When you begin noticing these patterns, you slowly uncover the outline of your true potential. The second stage is expression. Skills locked inside your mind create no impact, Skills shared with the world create value, and value eventually creates wealth. Every article you write, every lesson you teach, every video you publish, every insight you transform into a meaningful story becomes another seed planted for your future. At first, it may seem as though no one is paying attention, but the digital world quietly rewards consistency. Every expression creates momentum. Every piece of content increases your visibility, and increased visibility naturally attracts new opportunities. As you consistently express your skills, something priceless begins to develop. Your voice. Your voice is far more than the sound of your speech or the style of your writing. It is the unique way you solve problems, the way you interpret the world, the way you connect ideas, the way you simplify complexity, the way you create clarity for others. Your voice gradually becomes your identity within the digital marketplace. And in a world overflowing with noise, genuine authenticity is rare enough to become an asset by itself. Once your voice becomes clear, the next stage is packaging. You begin transforming your skills into structures capable of living independently from you. A course that teaches your knowledge, a digital product that solves a meaningful problem, a practical template, a step-by-step guide, a workbook, a useful tool, a structured learning system, a series of educational videos, an online service capable of growing without demanding every hour of your attention. The moment you document what you know, you create something capable of outliving the effort required to build it. The fourth stage is transformation. This is where your skill evolves from something you personally possess into something other people can repeatedly use. Transformation requires clarity. It requires simplicity. It requires patience. It requires the humility to refine your work, improve your delivery, adjust your teaching, and continually make your knowledge easier for others to understand. This is the stage where a skill becomes a system, and once it becomes a system, it becomes scalable. The final stage is expansion. Once your skill has been expressed, packaged, and structured, it naturally begins attracting people. Opportunities arrive without constant chasing. Clients discover you without endless persuasion. Sales begin happening without aggressive pressure. Your name slowly becomes a quiet symbol of trust. And in today's world, trust is one of the highest forms of currency anyone can possess. Over time, the digital assets built from your skills begin producing income in ways that almost feel unbelievable. A video generates earnings while you sleep. A course reaches someone you have never met. A guide you created months ago becomes the turning point in another person's life. A system you recorded once continues generating income for years, and during those moments, you discover something deeply powerful. Wealth has never been about working harder. Wealth is about multiplying the value you already carry within yourself. Your skills are far more than talents. They are chapters of your personal story. They are solutions waiting to be shared. They are assets waiting to come alive. The moment you learn to recognize them, express them, package them, and expand them, you begin creating wealth from the inside outward. You begin building something capable of producing value long after today's work has ended. You gradually transform your identity from someone who works for money into someone whose ideas continuously generate it. Your skills become your most loyal employees. They never become exhausted. They never resign. They never become ill. They grow stronger over time. They improve through practice. They compound through consistency. And once they begin working on your behalf, your life is never quite the same again. Real wealth does not rise and fall with your emotions. It does not depend on your daily schedule. It does not disappear whenever your energy fades. Real wealth continues standing even when you decide to rest. Real wealth is built upon foundations strong enough to endure time, economic uncertainty, inflation, unexpected crises, and changing seasons. Those foundations are called real assets. They are the timeless pillars supporting lasting financial stability. Unlike temporary trends, real assets do not depend upon hype. They do not rely upon luck. They are not sustained by momentum alone. They do not disappear simply because a platform changes its algorithm. They do not lose all value because a market experiences a temporary decline. Real assets remain steady, patient, resilient. They become the backbone of wealth across generations because they continue serving human needs that never disappear. Every truly wealthy person, without exception, builds their financial foundation upon real assets, property, gold, businesses, dividend-paying companies. The specific details may change from one century to another, but the underlying principles remain timeless. Ownership creates stability. Ownership creates leverage. Ownership creates power. Yet many people ignore these assets because they appear too slow, too ordinary, too predictable, too boring. But lasting wealth has never been built through excitement. It has always been built through accumulation, protection, consistency. To truly appreciate the value of real assets, you must adopt a completely different mindset. A mindset that values permanence over excitement, long-term rewards over short-term gratification, steady compounding over quick victories. At first, this mindset may feel calm, almost quiet, but hidden inside that quietness is a level of strength that most people never experience. The first great pillar of real assets is real estate. It is also one of the most misunderstood. When people hear the words real estate, they often imagine luxury mansions, towering skyscrapers, or enormous financial investments. Yet real estate begins much more simply than that. It begins with understanding one timeless truth. Land is one of the very few resources on Earth that cannot be recreated. There will always be a limited supply, and there will always be demand. People will always need homes. People will always need space. People will always need shelter. Whether it is a small rental apartment, a modest home in a growing neighborhood, shared ownership, or fractional ownership through modern investment platforms, anything that consistently produces cash flow or steadily appreciates in value becomes an asset capable of working while you are not. Real estate is the quiet soldier of wealth. It protects purchasing power against inflation. It creates recurring income. It steadily appreciates over time. And even a single property held patiently over many years has the power to permanently change your financial future. The second pillar is gold. Gold may not continuously generate income, but its purpose is equally important. It preserves the wealth you have already created. Across thousands of years, civilizations have risen, empires have fallen, currencies have disappeared, markets have soared, markets have collapsed. Yet, throughout all those changes, gold has remained remarkably consistent in fulfilling one purpose: preservation. Gold provides balance. Gold provides stability. Gold provides security when uncertainty shakes the financial world. It becomes the quiet insurance policy, protecting thoughtful wealth builders, a timeless store of value that strengthens everything surrounding it. The third pillar is ownership in companies willing to share their profits with you. These are commonly known as dividend-paying stocks. They represent one of the most accessible wealth-building assets available today. Every single day, these companies continue serving customers, selling products, expanding their businesses, increasing their value, and distributing a portion of those earnings directly to you, simply because you chose to own a small piece of what they have built. Imagine for a moment that you are no longer working for a business. Instead, the business is quietly working for you. That is the power of ownership. Dividend-paying stocks reward those who remain patient. They grow steadily through reinvestment. Every dividend you receive becomes another seed planted for future growth. Every payment creates the opportunity for the next one. Over time, the power of compounding becomes extraordinary. The amount you begin with matters far less than your commitment to continue. Wealth is not built by large beginnings. It is built by disciplined consistency. These three pillars, real estate, gold, and dividend-paying companies, work together in remarkable harmony. One generates dependable cash flow. One preserves purchasing power. One multiplies wealth through the quiet force of compounding. Together, they create a resilient financial ecosystem capable of surviving recessions, inflation, uncertainty, and economic storms. Most people never begin because they believe real assets are beyond their reach. They imagine needing enormous savings, flawless credit, or years of financial expertise before taking the first step. But the truth is much simpler. You do not become wealthy before buying real assets. You become wealthy because you begin acquiring them. You start with what you can comfortably afford. You learn, you adapt, you improve, you expand. A small monthly investment into a dividend fund, a modest allocation toward gold, a fractional share of real estate through modern investment platforms. These are not insignificant gestures. They are the quiet beginnings of generational wealth. Given enough time, enough patience, and enough consistency, they grow into something far greater than they first appear. The true magic of real assets lies in their permanence. They do not demand constant attention. They are not controlled by your emotions. They do not stop working because you decide to rest. They continue producing while you sleep. They continue growing while you live your life. They continue compounding whether you are watching them or not. Owning real assets also transforms the way you think. You stop asking, how much does this cost? You begin asking, how much can this earn? You stop viewing money as something meant to be spent. You begin seeing it as something meant to be deployed. You become increasingly strategic, increasingly intentional, increasingly responsible for designing your own financial future instead of simply consuming what others create. True wealth is remarkably quiet. It does not seek applause. It does not demand attention. It does not fluctuate with trends, opinions, or emotions. It moves steadily, patiently, consistently, like the rising sun, like the changing seasons, like the tides of the ocean. Real assets embody that same quiet strength. When you own assets that consistently generate income, you no longer live in survival mode. You no longer fear every uncertainty waiting in the future. You no longer depend entirely upon your job, your energy, or your circumstances. Instead, your wealth becomes an ecosystem supporting you from every direction. It grows while you grow older. It protects you while you rest. It continues serving you without demanding your constant attention. That is the true purpose of building assets that continue paying you forever. Not luxury, not status, but stability, freedom, peace, control, the ability to make decisions from desire rather than desperation. Eventually, real assets become much more than financial instruments. They become guardians of your time. They allow you to live according to your own priorities. They create space for thinking, for creating, for resting, for spending meaningful time with the people you love, for pursuing the work that truly matters to you. They buy back the one thing money alone can never replace: your life. And that is the true foundation of lasting wealth. There exists a quiet force within the universe that builds wealth more reliably than luck, more reliably than talent, and often more reliably than intelligence itself. It never shouts, it never rushes, it never asks for recognition. It works silently in the background while you continue living your life. It is patient, it is consistent, and it is unimaginably powerful. That force is compounding, the quiet miracle capable of transforming the smallest beginnings into extraordinary outcomes. Most people never experience the full power of compounding because they misunderstand what it truly is. They believe compounding is merely a financial formula, a mathematical calculation, a strategy reserved only for investors and economists. But compounding is much more than numbers. Compounding is a philosophy. It represents the relationship between time, discipline, and growth. It proves that wealth is never created through intensity alone. It is created through unwavering consistency. Compounding always begins quietly. During the earliest stages, it often feels disappointing. You save a small amount, you invest a small amount. You build one simple digital asset. You publish content that only a handful of people ever notice. You open your investment account and watch it increase by such a tiny amount that it almost feels meaningless. And yet that is precisely how compounding works. It deliberately hides its greatest strength during the beginning. Imagine planting a tiny seed beneath the soil. For weeks, nothing appears above the surface. The ground looks completely unchanged. If you did not understand nature, you might assume absolutely nothing was happening. But beneath the surface, roots are spreading. Structure is forming. Strength is developing. Compounding behaves exactly the same way. Its earliest stages remain invisible, quiet, hidden, yet absolutely essential. Then, almost without warning, everything changes. Growth begins accelerating. That tiny seed becomes a small sapling. The sapling becomes a strong tree. The tree becomes an entire thriving ecosystem. What once appeared insignificant becomes impossible to ignore. Money behaves this way. Knowledge behaves this way. Skills behave this way. Content behaves this way. Every meaningful part of life grows through compounding when you allow time to do its work. Most people quit before compounding ever reveals its true power. They abandon the journey during the slow, invisible stage. They demand immediate results. They expect transformation without patience. They chase new opportunities because the old ones seem to be progressing too slowly. They walk away moments before the curve finally begins rising. That is why compounding separates the wealthy from the impatient. Compounding rewards those who remain, those who return, those who continue, those who trust what cannot yet be seen. Once you truly understand this principle, building wealth begins to feel surprisingly effortless. Because compounding never demands perfection. It asks only for repetition. It asks for patience. It asks for consistency. Think about your investments. One small contribution appears insignificant, but month after month, year after year, that small contribution becomes meaningful, then significant, then life-changing. The money you invested begins earning money of its own. Then, the money it earns begins earning even more. Each generation of growth gives birth to the next. A continuous chain reaction of abundance begins unfolding. Now think about your skills. 10 minutes of writing every day. One small lesson learned. One new technique practiced. One additional improvement. None of it seems dramatic, but over years those tiny improvements accumulate until you become someone almost unrecognizable compared to the person you once were. That is compounding. Now think about your digital assets. A handful of videos, a few articles, several posts, a small number of customers served. It feels slow, almost invisible. Then one day, your audience expands, sales become predictable, trust begins multiplying. The systems you built months or even years earlier continue generating income while you sleep. That too is compounding. Compounding is perhaps the closest thing humanity has ever discovered to magic. It bends time in your favor. It transforms patience into prosperity. It turns humble beginnings into extraordinary outcomes. To fully harness the power of compounding, you must learn to treat time as your greatest ally instead of your greatest enemy. Most people spend their lives racing against the clock. Wealth builders choose to walk beside it. They understand that time can either slowly erode your future or steadily elevate it, depending entirely on how you choose to use it. When you work alongside compounding, time becomes your most loyal partner. Imagine a river carving its way through solid stone. Every single drop appears insignificant. Yet over years, those countless drops reshape entire landscapes. Compounding works exactly the same way. Small actions repeated faithfully create the pathway toward lasting freedom. The most difficult part of compounding is accepting the quietness of the beginning. There is no flood of excitement, no instant gratification, no standing ovation, only steady progress, quiet growth, and the confidence to keep going when almost nothing seems to be happening. It tests your belief far more than it tests your ability. But the moment the curve finally begins to rise, everything changes. Growth accelerates, momentum builds. Results begin multiplying much faster than the effort you continue putting in. This is why wealthy people often appear calm and relaxed. They are no longer running after every single dollar. Their systems are working, their investments are growing, their assets are producing. Compounding is providing the lift. They no longer spend their lives pushing uphill. They simply glide with the momentum they have patiently created. Compounding is also the way life rewards discipline. Every decision you make today, saving instead of spending, learning instead of endlessly scrolling, creating instead of constantly consuming, may appear small in the present, but compounding magnifies every one of those choices over time. 10 minutes of focused practice each day becomes mastery. One carefully made investment becomes generational wealth. One digital asset grows into a recognizable brand. One healthy habit gradually becomes an entirely new identity. Because compounding works quietly, most people fail to notice it until the results become impossible to ignore. One day your investment portfolio looks completely different. Your income streams feel stronger, your confidence feels deeper, your opportunities feel greater, your entire life begins to feel different. Not because you transformed everything overnight, but because you consistently improved the small things for a long enough period. This is the blueprint. The quiet blueprint followed by wealthy people. The blueprint that many people never discover. The blueprint that continues building wealth silently while they sleep, while they live, and while they grow. Compounding is not hidden, it is simply underestimated. Not because it is difficult to understand, but because it moves slowly. Not because it is invisible, but because it works so quietly that most people overlook it. The moment you truly understand it, the moment you align your habits, your finances, your skills, and your daily actions with the principles of compounding, you enter into an entirely different relationship with time. You stop chasing wealth. Instead, wealth slowly begins chasing you. Because compounding is one of the few forces in life that continues rewarding you even when you are not actively watching it. It keeps building while you rest. It keeps growing while you remain patient. It keeps multiplying while you stay consistent. That is how wealth quietly works in the background. Wealth is far more than money. Wealth is energy. It is movement. It is direction. It is intention. It is the steady flow of value moving across time, across decisions, across generations. Money itself is silent, but the way you manage it, the way you direct it, the way you protect it, those choices give it a voice. Those choices transform money from temporary comfort into lasting power. Many people believe building wealth is the final destination, but creating wealth is only the beginning. True mastery begins when you learn how to protect what you have created, expand it with wisdom, and extend its influence far beyond your own lifetime. Wealth without protection remains fragile. Wealth without expansion becomes stagnant. Wealth without purpose eventually disappears. This final chapter is not about earning more money. It is about becoming the kind of person capable of protecting wealth with clarity, managing it with wisdom, and growing it with long-term vision. It is about becoming an architect, someone who designs a structure capable of supporting not only your own life, but also the lives of those who come after you. To protect wealth, you must first understand its true nature. Wealth behaves like energy. It naturally moves toward order and away from chaos. When you neglect it, it slowly fades away. When you fear it, it contracts. When you misuse it, it eventually collapses. But when you respect it, study it, and intentionally direct it, it expands. Protection always begins with awareness, the awareness that money is not a trophy. It is a tool. It is not security by itself. It is a resource that requires thoughtful structure. The first layer of protection is psychological. Fear, greed, impulsiveness, ignorance. These four silent enemies destroy more wealth than almost any recession ever could. They quietly erode fortunes. They distort judgment. They sabotage wise decisions, and they cost people years of financial progress. To protect your wealth, you must first protect your mind. You must learn to think beyond today's excitement, beyond today's fear, beyond today's uncertainty. You must develop the ability to see decades instead of moments. When you operate from calmness rather than urgency, from clarity rather than emotion, your decisions become sharper. You stop chasing noise. You stop reacting to every market movement. You stop allowing the outside world to dictate your relationship with money. Wealth remains where the mind remains steady. Once your mindset becomes your strongest shield, the second layer of protection becomes structure. Every meaningful asset, a business, a property, an investment portfolio, intellectual property, every one of them requires legal, strategic, and financial boundaries. These boundaries are not created from fear. They are created from foresight. They ensure that everything you build remains protected when unexpected challenges eventually arrive. Wealthy people never rely upon luck. They rely upon architecture. They design systems capable of surviving storms long before the storms appear. But protection alone is never enough. Protection prevents loss. Expansion creates legacy. To expand wealth, you must understand one important truth. Money grows wherever intention exists. Expansion requires creativity, reinvestment, curiosity, and the courage to step into new opportunities. If you continue clinging to yesterday's version of your wealth, you quietly limit tomorrow's growth. Wealth responds to evolution. As you continue growing, your wealth grows alongside you. Every financial decision you make sends a signal, either multiply or diminish. Expansion begins the moment you consistently choose direction instead of distraction. True expansion is never reckless. It is strategic. It comes from studying where the world is heading, not where it has already been. It comes from reinvesting your profits into stronger skills, better technologies, emerging markets, smarter systems, and greater leverage. It comes from viewing money not as something meant to be spent, but as something meant to be deployed. The moment your wealth begins circulating with clear purpose, its growth accelerates. As growth accelerates, compounding strengthens, and once compounding strengthens, expansion moves beyond anything you imagined when you first began. But the deepest form of expansion is generational. Generational wealth is not simply about leaving money behind. Anyone can leave money behind. True generational wealth means leaving behind the capacity to create wealth, the mindset, the knowledge, the discipline, the wisdom. Wealth is energy, but every form of energy requires a prepared vessel. Without preparation, even great wealth eventually disappears in the hands of the next generation. Legacy is never created merely by giving people money. Legacy is created by giving people understanding. Your children, your family, your future generations, or even the people you choose to mentor, must understand how money flows, how assets behave, how long-term thinking creates freedom, how to protect what they earn, how to build what they need, and how to avoid the habits that quietly destroy financial potential. You do not truly pass on wealth simply by transferring assets. You pass on wealth by transferring perspective. When you begin seeing wealth as energy, everything changes. You no longer ask, "How much do I have?" Instead, you begin asking, "Where is this energy flowing? What opportunities is it creating? Who is it serving? What future is it helping build?" Energy always amplifies intention. When your intention becomes clear, your wealth multiplies with purpose. As the architect of generational wealth, your responsibility extends far beyond simple accumulation. Your responsibility is to shape, to design, to build structures that continue creating value even after your own presence is gone. A trust, an investment portfolio, a business, a system, a philosophy, each one becomes another pillar supporting the generations that follow. Your decisions become sharper. You stop chasing noise. You stop reacting to every market movement. You stop allowing the outside world to dictate your relationship with money. Wealth remains where the mind remains steady. Once your mindset becomes your strongest shield, the second layer of protection becomes structure. Every meaningful asset, a business, a property, an investment portfolio, intellectual property, every one of them requires legal, strategic, and financial boundaries. These boundaries are not created from fear. They are created from foresight. They ensure that everything you build remains protected when unexpected challenges eventually arrive. Wealthy people never rely upon luck. They rely upon architecture. They design systems capable of surviving storms long before the storms appear. But protection alone is never enough. Protection prevents loss. Expansion creates legacy. To expand wealth, you must understand one important truth. Money grows wherever intention exists. Expansion requires creativity, reinvestment, curiosity, and the courage to step into new opportunities. If you continue clinging to yesterday's version of your wealth, you quietly limit tomorrow's growth. Wealth responds to evolution. As you continue growing, your wealth grows alongside you. Every financial decision you make sends a signal, either multiply or diminish. Expansion begins the moment you consistently choose direction instead of distraction. True expansion is never reckless, it is strategic. It comes from studying where the world is heading, not where it has already been. It comes from reinvesting your profits into stronger skills, better technologies, emerging markets, smarter systems, and greater leverage. It comes from viewing money not as something meant to be spent, but as something meant to be deployed. The moment your wealth begins circulating with clear purpose, its growth accelerates. As growth accelerates, compounding strengthens, and once compounding strengthens, expansion moves beyond anything you imagined when you first began. But the deepest form of expansion is generational. Generational wealth is not simply about leaving money behind. Anyone can leave money behind. True generational wealth means leaving behind the capacity to create wealth, the mindset, the knowledge, the discipline, the wisdom. Wealth is energy, but every form of energy requires a prepared vessel. Without preparation, even great wealth eventually disappears in the hands of the next generation. Legacy is never created merely by giving people money. Legacy is created by giving people understanding. Your children, your family, your future generations, or even the people you choose to mentor, must understand how money flows, how assets behave, how long-term thinking creates freedom, how to protect what they earn, how to build what they need, and how to avoid the habits that quietly destroy financial potential. You do not truly pass on wealth simply by transferring assets. You pass on wealth by transferring perspective. When you begin seeing wealth as energy, everything changes. You no longer ask, "How much do I have?" Instead, you begin asking, "Where is this energy flowing? What opportunities is it creating? Who is it serving? What future is it helping build?" Energy always amplifies intention. When your intention becomes clear, your wealth multiplies with purpose. As the architect of generational wealth, your responsibility extends far beyond simple accumulation. Your responsibility is to shape, to design, to build structures that continue creating value even after your own presence is gone. A trust, an investment portfolio, a business, a system, a philosophy.